Minister, this morning, a little bit later this morning, the long campaigned for, long awaited film industry stakeholders forum is taking place, convened by your colleague in the Department of Arts. I presume your officials will be there, but one of the key issues that will be at stake there is the question of the use of successive multiple fixed-term contracts, where workers never acquire any kind of recognition of their service or employment security in the film industry. And I want to know what you intend to do to address this issue.
Last I'd like to thank Deputy Boyd Barrett for this question, indeed an issue I know he raises consistently, both here and through our time on the Finance Committee together. As the Deputy knows, Ireland has a comprehensive body of employment equality and industrial relations legislation which offers the same protections to all employees legally employed under a contract of employment. All employers, regardless of sector, are responsible for ensuring that their employees receive all the protections afforded them under employment legislation. The Protection of Employees Fixed-Term Workers Act 2003 transposes EU Directive 1999/70/EC concerning the framework agreement on fixed-term work into Irish law. The Act provides for the improvement of the quality of fixed-term work by ensuring the application of the principle of non-discrimination, that is, that fixed-term workers may not be treated less favourably than comparable permanent workers. The Act also provides for the establishment of a framework to prevent abuse arising from the use of successive fixed-term employment contracts. If an employee has worked on 2 or more fixed-term contracts, the combined duration of the contracts is limited to a maximum of 4 years. After this, if the employer wishes the employee to continue in its employment, it is deemed to be on the basis of a contract of indefinite duration, unless the employer has objective grounds for renewing the contract of employment again on a fixed-term basis. Section 9(5) of the Act provides that the first schedule of the Minimum Notice and Terms of Employment Acts 1973-2001 applies to the purpose of ascertaining the period of service of an employee and whether that service has been continuous. The European Commission have confirmed that Ireland has fully and faithfully transposed this directive. The requirement to adhere to employment rights legislation is now part of the certification process to receive the Section 481 film tax credit. An applicant company must submit an undertaking of compliance with all relevant employment legislation in respect to the film being certified. These conditions must be met not only by the producer company but also the designated activity company or DAC that is required to be set up to avail of the Section 481 tax credit. If a fixed-term employee feels that they are being treated less favourably as regards any conditions of employment than a comparable permanent employee, or if they consider that they are entitled to a contract of indefinite duration and their employer refuses to provide this, it is open to them to bring a complaint to the Workplace Relations Commission.
Yeah, that's the declaration, okay, and it is signed. I campaigned on behalf of film workers to get this declaration. Now, the thing about it is, when we bring the film producers, you give the government gives the film credit to into our committee and to previous committees, and I asked them the simple question: how many workers who've worked on film productions have acquired contracts of indefinite duration? Answer: 0. 0. And they went on to explain how it was not possible given the nature of the industry. So they sign a declaration saying they will apply to fixed-term workers and comply with it, and then they say it can't be complied with. And that's what's happening. So people work 10, 15, 20, 25 years in an industry and they keep getting fixed-term contracts, which means they can be blacklisted at any time. And indeed, we've had a ruling in the WRC recently that 38 workers were blacklisted precisely on this basis.
Thank you,
the government have to address this and enforce the legislation.
Yeah, good morning, Lascan Corla, and I appreciate the point that the Deputy is making, and he refers rightly to the recent case in December before the WRC, where they released the decisions in respect of a sample group of complaints made by 38 members of the industry. Now, these decisions are, of course, being appealed by the Labour Court, And separately, the Labour Court issued a decision earlier this month in respect of a separate complaint also related to the industry that the Deputy was no doubt aware of. And there are further related cases still, of course, being adjudicated. Look, I make it quite clear, Deputy, that Ireland has a robust legal framework in place to prevent employment law abuse. The Protection of Employees Act lays down measures to prevent the abuse of successive fixed-term contracts and the principle of equal treatment in working conditions, including means for recognising qualifying periods of service. The acts are working, but of course they can be improved, and we accept that. But that is why we have the WRC in place, to ensure that this is brought through.
They're not working. The producers told us nobody's ever getting a contract of indefinite duration, ever. They never have, and they're not going to. Now, that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable that people can work in an industry for 25, 30, 35 years and never get a contract of indefinite duration. And that means the clock goes back to zero every single film. It's like as if they've never worked in the industry before. And if the producer says, well, you're not getting back in the next film, nothing they can do. And then the producer hides behind the DAC and actually goes into the WRC and says, I'm not your employer. They're the one who gets the money to employ people, but they said, no, the DAC is your employer. Did you set up the DAC? Yeah, I set it up. But it's not me. It's a separate entity. Right? That's what's happening. And the government have to do something about this. Because workers are trying to take cases, and then we have this, they have the other side have barristers and all sorts of things to muddy the waters. So the government have to crack the whip and insist that the fixed term workers legislation is actually complied with and enforced.
Just on 2 points, Laskin Corla, Deputy, in relation to the protections that are provided under Section 481 of the tax relief application. This is very clear that in respect of the direct relationship between the producer company and the qualifying company, the DAC, as you referred to, it has to be reinformed by the Act of 1994, which entitles an employee to certain information about their employer, including the full names and details, to ensure that it can't be hidden upon. In relation then, in terms of what the department is doing specifically to blacklisting, which you raised, under the Unfair Dismissals Acts from 1977 to 2015, this is providing those protections to ensure that this can't be in place, and that if an employer fails to follow procedures when dismissing an employee, a claim may be taken under the Industrial Relations Act. Additionally, under 1969, and officials in my department closely monitor Deputy labour market practices and case law from Ireland and abroad to react to the emerging trends in all sectors, but particularly this industry, and this is where the workplace relations comes into play, Laskin Corla, to adjudicate on these cases and ensure that they're being enforced.